Imagine the world filled with individuals who still possess unwavering goodwill and compassion. People who become heroes in their everyday lives, not by wearing capes, but by showcasing humanity at its purest. Picture Shakira Autry, a woman from Buffalo, New York, who turned into a beacon of hope during a blizzard, or Tracy Dean, a bus driver from Utah, who became a fairy tale's hair fairy for an 11-year-old girl. Imagine a world where people like Hala Prigmore, a mail carrier from Georgia, become heroes for a dog named Ginger. And just when you think you have a grasp of the kind of stories we're going to discuss today, there comes a tale of a man named Michael Armis Sr., who stopped a bank robbery with nothing but empathy and a hug. Can you believe it? But wait until you hear about the twist in these stories. That I'm afraid you'll have to find out in a while. What's up, my amazing and curious folks? Ready to unravel mysteries together? I'm your host, Cesar, and with me is the brilliant Sonia Guimaraes. Are you ready to dive into today's topic, Sonia Guimaraes?
I'm more than ready, Cesar. As always, it's a pleasure to be sharing these fascinating stories with our curious listeners.
Fantastic. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit that bell icon to stay updated with the most incredible curiosities on Curiosity Wonderland. Now, let's get the ball rolling, shall we? Now, folks, I want you to picture a blistering blizzard in Buffalo, New York. It's Christmas Eve in the year of 2022, and the winds are howling at 53 miles per hour. The temperatures have plummeted to a frigid 4 degrees Fahrenheit. Amid this turmoil, a 35-year-old environmental services manager named Shakira Autry is woken up by the storm. And then she hears it. A cry for help.
Wow, in the middle of a blizzard?
Yes, in the middle of a deadly record-breaking blizzard. And when she looks out her window, she sees a man struggling in the snow. He has no gloves on, and he's fighting against these incredibly harsh conditions.
That sounds terrifying. Who is this man?
His name was Joey White. He was a 64-year-old man with Asperger's syndrome. He's on the autism spectrum and has the mental capacity of a 10-year-old. Joey lived in a group home just a few blocks away from Autry's home.
So he was probably lost and disoriented in the storm.
That's likely. And despite her own feelings of sadness due to not being able to pick up her 3 sons for Christmas, Autry knew she had to help. But what she did next, and how this fateful Christmas Eve unfolded, let's save that for the next segment. So Joey White is thrown into this life-threatening situation, and the storm is just too much for him. He falls and becomes unable to get back up.
And in such freezing temperature, that's a dangerous situation to be in.
Absolutely. But Trenholz Jr., Autry's boyfriend, steps in and carries White into their house. They do their best to warm him up. They even try to treat his frostbite with triage tips from a nurse over FaceTime.
But I imagine this wasn't enough, right?
Not quite. Joey's condition was more severe than they could handle. His shoes were actually frozen to his body, and his hand was covered in ice balls. They knew he needed professional medical attention.
But with the storm still raging, I presume getting help was a challenge.
Indeed. They called 911, but the city was buried in thick snow. First responders couldn't reach them. They tried to get help from the National Guard too, but no one came.
So they were stuck, trying to take care of Joey by themselves?
Yes, but they make the most of it. Autry even cooks him pancakes on Christmas morning and a pot roast for dinner. She was determined to keep his spirits up.
That's beyond heartwarming. But what about his condition?
It worsened. By Christmas evening, White was drifting in and out of consciousness. Autry had to make a public plea for help through Facebook Live.
I can't even imagine the desperation she must have felt.
But her plea was heard. Former NFL player Doug Worthington and his brother-in-law Jason Keepa responded and took White to the Erie County Medical Center.
So he finally got the help he needed.
Yes, but sadly he lost 9 fingers and half a thumb to severe frostbite. But one thing's for certain, Autry's bravery and compassion saved Joey White's life. Now let's shift our focus to American Fork, Utah. Here, we have an 11-year-old girl named Isabella Pieri. She lost her mother to a rare brain illness, and her father, Philip, is working hard to take care of her and her older brother.
That must have been tough for the family.
Absolutely. And there was one thing that Philip struggled with in particular: taking care of Isabella's hair.
Hair care can be a challenge, especially for someone not used to it.
Yes, he even chopped Isabella's hair into a crew cut at one point. But help came from an unexpected place: their bus driver, Tracy Dean.
The bus driver? That's interesting.
Yes, Tracy noticed that Isabella needed help with her hair. She had been helping another student with her braids, and eventually Isabella asked Tracy to help with her hair too.
So Tracy stepped in to help?
Yes, she started braiding Isabella's hair and even teaching her how to brush, detangle, and style it on her own.
That's such a simple yet meaningful act of kindness.
It really is. And it made a world of difference to Isabella and her father. They're both extremely grateful.
And I bet it boosted Isabella's confidence too.
Undoubtedly, it's these small acts of kindness that can have such a huge impact. But let's switch gears again. Our next story involves a mail carrier, a dog, and an unexpected scenario. Now let's talk about Holly Prigmore, a mail carrier who has been working with the United States Postal Service since February of 2022.
I'm guessing her story involves a dog?
It certainly does. On one of her usual mail delivery routes, she came across Ginger, a black beagle mix who seemed to be in pain, and then a snake snaps at Ginger.
Wait, a snake?
Yes, a copperhead to be precise, which is a venomous snake. Prigmore knew what to do. She removed Ginger's collar to prevent any swelling and got the suffering dog into her postal van.
And she was alone with no immediate help?
Exactly. With the dog's owners not being home, Prigmore took Ginger to a nearby animal hospital for treatment.
That's quite a brave act.
It really is. The owners were so grateful and shared the incident on Facebook, calling Prigmore a postal hero. When they finally met, Ginger was so excited to see Prigmore, she even jumped into the postal van.
That's an amazing story of kindness.
Now, let's move on to our next heroic act, which takes place at the Bank of the West in Woodland, California. Here, 69-year-old Michael Armas Sr. steps into the limelight. Michael Armas Sr. walks into his local branch, expecting a routine day, but instead, he finds himself in the middle of a bank robbery. The robber is a man named Eduardo Plasencia.
A bank robbery? That's a terrifying situation.
Indeed it is. But as it turns out, Armas knew Plasencia as a former neighbor and friend of his daughter. Instead of panicking, Armas approached Plasencia with empathy.
Empathy? That's not the usual response to a robbery.
Not typically, no. Armas spoke with Plasencia and learned he felt there was nothing left for him in the town and wanted to go to prison. Armas managed to comfort Plasencia and even hugged him, which led to Plasencia breaking down in tears.
Wow, that's an incredible story. It reminds me of a time when I was a kid. I was around 10 and I'd frequently go to this small local park. There was a boy named João, a couple of years older than me. He was always by himself, sitting on a bench. One day I found him crying. I was scared, but I approached him and asked what was wrong. He told me his dog had passed away and he had no one to share his grief with. The loneliness was eating him. I sat there with him, we talked, and I even shared my sandwich. From that day onwards, we became good friends. I learned that sometimes all we need is someone to listen and share our feelings.
That's a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing. Now let's move forward. Next, we have a story from Boynton Beach, Florida, where a group of Good Samaritans stepped in to save the life of a woman who had become unconscious while driving. We return to the story of Lori Rabior, the seamstress from Boynton Beach, Florida. After going unconscious while driving, her coworker Jeanette Rivera noticed something was wrong.
That's some quick thinking.
Indeed, Rivera ran into traffic, trying to stop Rabior's car. She signaled other drivers, and 5 other Good Samaritans jumped out to help.
Just goes to show there's a hero in everyone.
Absolutely. They managed to stop the runaway car, and then redirected traffic while help arrived.
And they got recognized for their bravery.
Yes, the Boynton Beach Police Department presented them with life-saving awards, and Royal Caribbean donated a Caribbean cruise, along with a $1,000 gift card to each of them.
That's so heartwarming. What's next?
Our next story takes us to Westland, Michigan. George Kondash, while going about his day, found a plastic box near an ATM.
Let me guess, it was full of cash?
You got it. The box had a tag that said it contained $40,000. But the surprise is, Kondash took the money right back up to the credit union.
Not everyone would do that.
Indeed. He asked the teller if there was a reward for $40,000. The bank manager, Alicia Stewart, gave him a small, undisclosed reward.
The real reward was a clear conscience, right?
Exactly. Our next hero is Ariel Naylor, but before we dive into that, let's take a short break. Welcome back. We now dive into the story of Zaira Mendoza from Nicaragua, who after being in the United States for only 5 months, found herself in a terrifying situation.
Sounds like a nightmare.
Indeed. While walking on a sidewalk in Burlington, Massachusetts, Mendoza realized a man was following her. The man, 23-year-old Tyler Healy, attacked her.
Oh, that's awful.
Mendoza was dragged and assaulted, and tragically several cars passed by without stopping. But there was a good Samaritan, Ariel Naylor, who was driving home from work. She saw the attack, stopped, and called 911.
Thank goodness for people like Naylor.
Absolutely. Healy released Mendoza and ran away when Naylor stopped her SUV. Police arrested him 2 days later.
It's so important to be aware and help when we can.
Mendoza later said of Naylor, "God sent me an angel." Our next story is about Minu Pauline, a 28-year-old banker turned chef from Kochi, India.
That's quite the career shift.
It certainly is. Pauline owns Papa Devada, an ethnic tea shop and restaurant, which has a fridge full of uneaten food for the homeless and hungry, accessible 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So Minu Pauline's restaurant contributes around 50 packs of food daily to this fridge for the needy. She also encourages her customers to add their uneaten food to the fridge.
That's a fantastic initiative. It's like a food-sharing community hub.
Absolutely. She ensures the food packs are dated for quality and safety, and anyone hungry can take a meal free of charge, no questions asked.
That's so heartening. Who's next on our list?
Our next story is from Chicago, Illinois. Destiny Carreno was at a McDonald's during rush hour when she noticed an elderly, handicapped gentleman needing assistance.
I can imagine how chaotic that time can be.
It was. The gentleman was trying to ask for help, but it took them a while to understand. It turned out he needed help eating his meal.
And someone stepped up?
Yes, a cashier named Kenny. He shut down his register, washed his hands, put on gloves, and helped the man eat. Carreno was so moved, she took a photo and shared it on Facebook.
Compassion can make such a difference.
It can. Our last story for the day is about a 10-year-old boy, Connor Daytree, from Plymouth, Massachusetts, who lost his mother, Linnell Leonard, in a car crash. One of the few things he had left of her was a heart-shaped locket with her initials and fingerprints.
That's heartbreaking. He must have cherished that locket.
He did. But before we delve into that, let's take a short break. Welcome back. Let's continue with Connor Daytree's story. In October of 2023, Daytree had been practicing soccer when he fell down and lost his cherished locket.
Oh no, that must have been devastating for him.
It certainly was. His grandmother, Melissa Moriarty, shared photos of the locket on a community Facebook group. But despite many people searching the field, they couldn't locate it.
I can imagine the sense of loss they must have felt.
Absolutely. But then a 61-year-old detectorist named Lou Assey heard about the story. He takes pride in helping others find their lost items with his metal detector for free.
That's amazing. So he took it upon himself to help find the locket?
Yes, he did. Despite initial setbacks, he persisted. After talking to Daytree and Moriarty, he had a better idea of where to look. Assey and his wife searched for 2 more hours and finally located Daytree's locket.
What a beautiful ending to the story.
An emotional reunion indeed. Stories like these remind us of the goodness in people and how we can make a difference in each other's lives. So in this episode, we've covered 10 inspiring stories of compassion and selflessness. From Shakira Autry, who saved a man's life during a blizzard, to Tracy Dean, who went the extra mile to bring a smile to a young girl's face. We've seen the courage of Hala Prigmore, who rushed a wounded dog to the vet, and the kindness of George Kondash, who returned a huge sum of money that wasn't his.
We've also heard about a restaurant owner in India who feeds the hungry from a fridge outside her restaurant, and about a McDonald's employee in Chicago who showed an elderly man compassion when he needed it most.
And let's not forget Lou Assey, who returned a precious locket to a young boy. It's people like these who remind us that there's still a lot of good in the world.
Absolutely. It's heartwarming to know that there are people who go above and beyond to help others. We hope these stories have inspired you as much as they've inspired us.
Just remember, no act of kindness is ever wasted. And as we close this episode, we encourage you to be the reason someone believes in the goodness of people.
Well said. If you've enjoyed today's episode of Curiosity Wonderland, give us a blast on the like button, drop a comment, and share the episode with your friends. We appreciate your support.
And that is a wrap for today's episode. Thank you for tuning in. See you next time.
Thank you, everyone. Stay safe and keep spreading kindness.
Our heartfelt stories come from an article on Listverse titled 10 Stories That Prove Good People Still Exist in the World, written by Julie Henthorne and published on December 29th, 2023. The full URL is in the video description if you want to delve deeper into the subject. Now I'm off.